I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
If you would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the filthy capitalist option. As Sori says, 125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You don't have to be a part of the alliance. You don't have to be part of the group.
Wait a minute.
And the biggest thing is you don't have to wait. You hop, skip, and jump right in front of everybody. 125 gets you there. You do that 3 times, and then get mashed down to the $75 rate for perpetuity.
Yes!
Also, there is a band review option. So if you've got a band and you're trying to get your band some exposure, hit me up at vinsori@gmail.com and I'll show you the details about how to pull that off.
You can also jump on Patreon, and there is a option on the tiers to be able to get your band reviewed. Yep. Obviously, we can't lie to you, so we can't guarantee a positive review. Get what you get.
It's just rubbish.
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 That's British for garbage.
My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in at Patreon. You get to join an alliance. The alliance joins their points together, and that helps determine what songs that we do.
The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go on the village, facebook.com/Vin and Sori. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Sori and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Buy merch.
So song 3 is Haunted Memories, and this is one of my favorite tracks on the album.
Haunted Memories.
Yeah.
Green Druid. Let's go. A little bit different, huh?
terrifying.
sheets I sent
It should
you.
be 3308.
Yep. Okay.
Oh my God.
Scheiße.
This one was a tough listen, I gotta say.
Because of the lyrics?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, like people throwing tens in chat.
Yeah.
That you can see why I was hovering at like 9.8 for the
Yeah.
first song.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is these songs are such a journey. Like the previous song, not so much. It's a little bit more linear, right?
Yeah.
But like the first song and the third song are just such a journey. The way that they change and evolve, and tempo changes.
Yeah.
The mood progresses and evolves. And I love this song so much. And this one, like lyrically, I often, when I think about the lyrics, I think like it seems like a very personal experience with dreaming and memories and having things resurface in dreams.
Yeah.
And not so much a story. Like that's
Right.
where this song deviates from the rest of the album, is this one doesn't really have much going on in terms of story from what I can tell. But even though like the first song is about a dream, second song feels like the hypnagogic state, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so still dreaming sort of. And then the third song seems to be sort of almost like reflecting on the impact of the dreams, reflecting on the repeated impact of the dreams. Like, this is what I experience. These are how my dreams affect me. And, and I have, and it's sort of a way of expressing the effect. But the interesting part here, though, for the most interesting part is the part where it says, "The phantom, it howls in an ungodly voice. My ears rattle, burst, and bleed." Because the rest of the song is just talking about sort of these are memories. These are how they haunt me. I wish I could forget. I wish I could forget these faces.
Yeah.
And even beyond that part, it still talks about like feeling there's no escape, a feeling of not being able to escape and dissolving quietly. So everything else sort of just is almost an adjective for how the dreams affect them, and sort of explanation about the effect of the dreams. But then this one part, it gets more esoteric, and it starts talking about something a bit more almost like there's something embodied in it. The phantom, it howls in an ungodly voice. My ears rattle, burst, and bleed. That one part gets much more into something that has like an embodiment for it.
And that's what we're talking about. Like in dreams, it's like the traditional Freudian thing is that the characters in your dreams are just shards of your subconscious that you're trying to suppress, which that's definitely in here. But then there's the other theory of dreams, which is maybe, but sometimes what you run into is something completely separate from that. And that's that phantom, which is this sort of thing that's always like at this corner of your eye, but when you go to look at it, it's gone, and she can't quite, I mean, one of these days maybe, but I thought about you, as far as stuff goes. But.
Well, I was kind of wondering if, obviously we haven't heard the rest of the album, but if it's like different phases of consciousness. So you had the deep sleep, the dream state there, and then the next one was kind of like that in-betweeny sort of stage we talked about. And now this one is the consciousness that is memories, and how memories affect us, and how they're real, but they're not real because they're not happening now, but you can have a memory that makes you feel now what you felt then. Obviously this song was difficult in the sense, for me, it made me think of, kids that experience childhood molestation. Usually it happens at night when they're in their beds, and then the memories, sometimes when they're so young, they don't remember it like as a solid memory. It's kind of like this vague sort of haunting, I guess you could say. This person doesn't want to remember. But the memories still keep coming back. And I think that sometimes, we talked about dealing with your inner child, and you have to also face the tragedies of the past as well to be able to find your healing. But you have to be in a safe environment to do that, around supportive people, having a supportive crew to be able to really focus in on the painful details of the past and what you can remember there. When I was listening to this, I thought of two different things. One was the daddy review, and the comment section is absolutely ruthless. Well, not ruthless in the sense that people are mean to each other, but just ruthless in the sense of, wow, there's so many people and what their experiences were. And I actually don't go in that comment section all the time because it's painful. It's painful how widespread it is. But at the same time,
That's the thing
you can.
that got me about that review.
Yeah.
I go check on it once in a while.
I
in the
do too.
comment section, and
Yeah.
like, it happens to dudes, it happens to girls, it happens to
Yep.
the babysitter, it was the uncle, it was the aunt,
Yep.
it was the sister, the brother, the dad, the mom,
Unbelievable.
the grandmother. Like, shit is just.
That's the most insane one right there, grandmother. That's so friggin' crazy to me. It's almost, I want to say that never happened, but I'm sure that it did. But so that it kind of made me think about that, and those experiences and those memories and stuff. And then it also reminded me, I used to have these dreams all the time of just demonic, evil things, creatures that would come to me in my dreams. And it was so much so that I feared falling asleep, because whether I would see those demonic creatures or I would see people dying, and it wouldn't even necessarily be people that I knew or I loved. Like one time, it was Michael Landon, because I was a kid. So we were watching Little House on the Prairie. And yeah, Michael Landon.
I was thinking, is it a different Michael Landon?
No, it's the Michael Landon you're thinking of. Yeah. And I was like, I remember it was my grandparents' camp. They had this weird carpet that they put on it must have been something, because they all worked at the mill and different stuff like that. There was this weird, like, sort of thick canvas that was rolled out all over the ground. So it like kind of made the outdoors like a little indoorsy. I don't know how to explain it. But I was at my grandparents' camp and I saw the lump in that carpet thing. And I'm like, in my dream, I knew there was a body. And I was like, somebody went over and lifted the carpet. Huh? In the dream, yeah. They said it's Michael Landon. And I was like, don't look. And I was like, I'm going away from this, because anytime that I would go toward it, it would always get like really crazy. Like one time, like it was like a skeleton that was hiding in this. It's so weird that I can remember things. Like I was like 12 probably when I had this dream. So I went into this bathroom, and in the bathroom there was what are those? You know, at school, the lockers. There was lockers.
Oh.
And I heard this like banging on the locker. And I was like, no, I know what's in there. There's something bad in there, and I'm getting the hell out of Dodge. And so I tried to get by the locker, and then the locker opened, and the skeleton fell out. And the neck, we couldn't watch any scary movies, so this was just all straight from my own head. The neck bones were there, like just the vertebrae, but the head was missing. So it was just like this jagged, and like it came toward me, and it started like tearing me, my skin all off. It was the craziest dream. But I decided to at one point to say, I refuse to look at it anymore. I'm leaving the area anytime I have dreams like that. And that kind of like stayed it off for a while. And it was that coupled with praying. I started praying every single night before I went to bed. I would say, Jesus.
Like you wouldn't see Michael Landon's dead body anymore?
Any dead bodies. I was like, Jesus, please help me to just have good dreams. Help me to have dreams that come from you that are, good and happy and whatever. And I want to say the first night that I prayed, those dreams stopped. And it went on like that for years. And then eventually I started getting some crazy ass dreams again. But those weren't like dead bodies. Those were just like evil, demonic, dark creatures that, again, I had to bring the name of Jesus to. And that was the only thing that kind of made that stuff go away. Other than that, it was pretty terrifying. I didn't even want to go to sleep. I was so scared.
I never had such detailed dreams. Like I had, and I never really had much in the way of like bad dreams either. Where there are a couple of exceptions. The really, really bad dreams, the series of nightmares that I was having, which were kind of like night terrors or something, were back when I was 5 years old, I think, and it would happen every night for a while. And there was nothing there was no like memory of any kind of dream or anything. I would just wake up screaming and crying, and like my dad would usually be the one to kind of help me out and get me up and give me like warm milk and kind of get me back to bed. So that was a period when I think I was 5. And then there was I had a couple of nightmares after seeing some pretty heavy movies. One of them was the original Pit and the Pendulum from the 1960s, which is actually a pretty scary movie for a kid, even like a 1960s
Yeah, I don't
movie.
know
Like,
anything about it.
you think of 60s, like early 60s movies. This is like 1961, right? You think of early 60s movies as being cheesy, right? But
Yeah.
it's based on, so it's Vincent Price, he's featured in it, and it's based on the Edgar Allan Poe story. And the movie is all about basically trying to drive, or the story is all about trying to drive the man who inherited his father's estate, or his grandfather's estate, trying to drive him insane so they can basically his wife is, well, I don't want to get too much into it in case you guys ever want to read the story or watch the movie, but it's a very torturous movie, both literally and figuratively, because they're trying to drive this man insane. And the entire concept of it, like, and it's a very dark, dismal film that's set in a castle, and they did such a good job of just painting the atmosphere and giving you this dark, dismal atmosphere, and then building on a gradual, progression of insanity. And it's very sinister, it's very malicious. And so there's just there are these elements that make it really scary. Like, to me, growing up like as an 80s kid, I think in the 70s and 80s, you got exposed to a lot of the more modern elements of horror. And so they were kind of like, it's just sort of a trope. You grow up with it, and you're not really, even though I lived a pretty sheltered life, there's enough exposure to it around with kids with like Fangoria magazines and stuff, to where it's kind of like, it doesn't do anything to you. There's like no effect. So like the more vulgar form of horror and the things that are more blunt, like dead bodies and stuff, no effect. But the like driving someone towards insanity and that progression of taking a sane man and pushing him over sanity's edge was really disturbing for me.
Oh my God, I bet.
And that one really affected me. And I think I was 10 at the time when I saw that. And I think my dad thought that it wouldn't be that big of a deal to show it to me because it was an older film, right? It's from the early 60s. And so he probably figured that it wouldn't be that big of a deal to show to me. But it clearly had an effect. So that one really affected me and gave me nightmares. And the nightmares for that one were very specific and pretty vivid. And it was like, again, I don't want to give too much away, but it was like I was.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna watch it.
It's like I was in the character
my gosh.
Watching it all happen, and
watching yourself slowly go insane.
Sort of, yeah.
Wow,
it was really wild, especially for that age.
Jumped into my body in a dream.
Yeah, that was pretty.
Were
weird.
you in the character's body, or were you just like inside but observing, not experiencing?
Yeah, like inside but observing, and then like seeing it from specific points in the movie.
Wow.
And it's really pretty disturbing if you see the original. There's a remake of it from much later on, but the original early 1960s one with Vincent Price is the one that's like that's a deep one. So if you watch it, be prepared. Especially if you're affected by like really deep psychological kind of horror. And I'd probably, like, these days it wouldn't be that big of a deal for me, but it sure was when I was 10 or 11.
Yeah, I bet.
Wow.
But like when it comes to like repetitive dreams, the way like this is talking about, the only thing I can really think of in terms of a repetitive dream is this one weird one that used to come up as sort of like I'd have a dream, and then it would always, and the dream could be anything, but then at the end of the dream there would be this state where I end up in the same place. And what it was was this weird, always empty. I was the only one in it, and it was like a high school gym shower area that was abandoned. And the most important thing that I always remember, because I've always been very sensitive to this, is I never liked walking on gym floors. Like when I'd be in high school gym class or earlier in middle school and stuff like that. I didn't like walking barefoot
Yeah.
on the gym floor.
Why?
Because it was always kind of gross.
Nasty.
Yeah.
That's
great.
And so I didn't like
horrible.
it. And so what I always remember about this, it would always come up every once in a while, and I'd be like walking and like looking down and have the same, like the rubber mats that are perforated, and it would have like the smell as well. And I wouldn't want to, I'd be like hyper aware of walking over them and not wanting to actually touch them with my feet, but I'm forced to walk on them.
Pause. Hang on.
Good, Serge, you're right.
Okay, so you'd walk across, and it was perforated edges. And then what happened?
Yeah, so it's like the
God
rubber
dang
mats
it!
that are
Wait,
perforated.
the gods are against me.
Good.
Help me, babe.
I'm not gonna help you. You stole my thing. I
my
think you
God.
have them on backwards too.
What do you mean?
That might be the problem. Is that supposed to be your right ear or your left ear?
No, cord always goes in the left.
Oh, it's on my right.
What?
We're mirrored.
Ah, okay.
Now it's left.
I should have just left it there.
Yeah, so yeah, the rubber perforated mats that they have in like gym floors and stuff, gym shower floors. Yeah, I'd be walking over those, and I'd be hyper aware of the fact that I'm walking on them. It would really disgust me. And, like that was a recurring dream for me, and it was always like an aftermath thing. Like I'd have some other dream, and then it would inevitably like transition into this weird like abandoned gym shower, like school gym shower, that I'd be having to walk across the mats over, and I'd be like, no, I don't want to walk across. It was disgusting.
Your parents should have bought you flip flops.
That was it. Yeah, back in those days, it was like it was rare that someone, like, people would bring their own flip flops.
Yeah,
but then like kids would steal the flip flops.
No way. Oh, it's annoying.
Like, so
100%.
And I came from, we didn't have money, so like mine would get stolen and I couldn't replace them.
Oh, that's sad.
So yeah, so it was just a weird thing. It was a recurring thing, and it happened like through. I think it first started in maybe around middle school or something, because that was probably around the first time that I got exposed to gyms like that, or gym showers like that, and it carried on with me like into my 20s. I'd say probably last time I remember having that dream was probably a good 20-ish years ago, maybe like 15 years ago. And yeah, it's just it was a weird recurring thing, but it wasn't like I wonder what it meant. A nightmare or anything. It wasn't scary. It was just gross.
Well, this girl's dream seemed to be the typical Freudian suppressed memory thing, which it's just mind-boggling to me. Like, people say, oh yeah, that's just your subconscious trying to get you to force you to, deal with things that you were trying to hide. It's like, you're talking about your subconscious as if it's its own
I know.
Sentient sort of that schemes and says, I'm going to wait till Zonya's asleep, then I'm going to get you, motherfucker. It's like, it makes sense, but I'm like, do we hear what we're saying?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And then sometimes, like, there are memories that we actively don't want to memorize or don't want to experience.
Recall.
Right? And then you're doing the dishes and then boom, it's in front of the movie screen. Like, how the fuck does that happen? If I'm against, like, we think we're in control of so much shit.
I know.
It's so funny to me. If I'm against this memory, then what mechanism of my person is saying, yeah, I know, bro, but you still gonna have to look at this stuff? You see what I'm saying? Like, yeah. If that was in the physical world, like, we would fight, right? Like, you're saying, like, yo, I don't want to watch this movie. It's a nasty-ass movie, bro. Right. And then somebody in the room was like, well, no, motherfucker, you're going to watch this movie. Like, you'd be like, what? You see what I'm saying? Like, that's why we've been spending so much time looking at consciousness, because it's so incredible. Like, we live in a completely, like, insanely magical world that is also extremely horrific. And I think this is one of the horrific parts of being conscious beings.
Yep.
Is that you do not have full autonomy over your consciousness.
No, you don't.
And I think a lot of us, like, if we did have full autonomy over our consciousness, would probably feel better. Because then I'd never have to watch that movie. Of course, the person could say, yeah, but you never deal with the issue. And then I would say, yeah, but if I totally forgot about the issue, if I could completely and totally forget about X or Y traumatic experience that happened to me, right? What's the difference between that and it never happening to me?
No, I think there's a difference because I think that whether you remember it or not, the trauma is still there.
How?
So, like...
If I have no recollection whatsoever, how could the trauma be there?
No, experientially, you still experience it. Just because your mind doesn't remember it, you still feel something's wrong.
There's a difference between the conscious memory of something and the subconscious. So
the
subconscious, you're still imprinted with the experience, even if you don't remember any specifics or any details or anything like that.
Remember that?
And so there are other things that will manifest as a result, like having an irrational fear of something can oftentimes be traced to a traumatic event that you don't even remember in your past.
What if I could completely delete it from my subconscious as well, though?
I don't think you could because remember we were watching that scientific thing. Stop. We were watching that scientific thing that was saying it's imprinted in all your cells.
Wait, it's a what if? I'm just asking.
So we're just going completely hypothetical here.
It's completely hypothetical. Because I don't believe that we have control over our subconsciousness. That's why I'm saying, like, we don't have complete autonomy over our consciousness. But let's say in some weird world, you could take a pill. What do you say, ketamine? And
ketamine
I could completely delete that from that moment or that traumatic event from my subconscious as well. It's a complete deletion. Boop. Okay. What would be the difference between not remembering and never experiencing it?
I disagree with you at such a deep level that you can't say anything. What are you
disagreeing with?
Because I don't believe, like, some of the things that I've thought and felt over the years when I had no conscious memory of stuff, I still felt like something was bad wrong. And it wasn't because I had a memory.
Well, that's your subconscious is pretty active.
Here we go.
What?
I'm telling you, I didn't have any memory of it. But
that's what the subconscious is.
Like, the way that memory works, you're mapping, you're effectively like mapping proteins in the brain that are creating neurological paths. So if you were to, like, an event happening is going to create a lot of pathing in your brain.
Right.
That's going to have impulses firing across it based on certain conditions related to that, to the memory that created the pathing. So if you were to, like, delete the memory, you'd have to, like, you would effectively remove all that pathing, and you would have, like, what existed before the experience happened in terms of the pathing in the brain. So there's a movie that actually talks about, not that deep, obviously, because that would be boring in a movie, but there's a movie called Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah, no, that's what Negative Vibes just said.
Yeah, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind with Jim Carrey.
Or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Yeah,
yeah, that's where I got it. That's where I got the idea.
Oh, we watched that one.
And that's basically something that's challenging the idea that you are just your experience, you are just the experiences, and is kind of suggesting that if you still go through all the same experiences as individuals, perhaps you're built to be a couple, right? And so effectively they have a bad. I need to see the movie. I haven't actually seen it. I've only heard.
Oh, you should. You should see it.
Such a fascinating.
Yeah, it really is.
It's basically suggesting that no matter what, they're destined to be together, right?
Right.
And so that they somehow just work as people, and inevitably their paths will lead them back to being together again. And it sounds like a really interesting concept, and I've always wanted to see it. I've just not gotten around to it yet.
So then would you say that would mean that even if you were to completely delete all of your trauma, you'd inevitably run back into that trauma again?
It kind of, I don't know, because you've got so much of your life built up based on your memories. Like, you are effectively your memories because you are everything you recall. So if you eliminate a portion of that, so much of your life is built up around it. So I guess it depends. Like, if your behavior took you in the direction of experiencing that trauma, and you go and delete that trauma, so you've never learned from it, so you don't know to avoid
that's
the thing
so
you did
interesting.
to avoid the trauma, you could inevitably lead yourself back into that trauma again.
Yeah.
Well, you'd be a completely different person, and then you would be because you said your memory. That's what I'm saying. Like if
Because you learn from that.
And that's why I think probably that God gave us a subconscious, because if we could, a lot of us would delete shit.
Oh, absolutely.
But we don't realize the ramifications of what that. None of us understands the ramifications of what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, but that's what, like, it's almost as if when you read Freud and Jung, like it's almost Jung more explicitly. It's almost like your subconscious is like his own guy, and he's running the control panel, and he's like, look, guess what, Z? At fucking 12:38 Pacific Standard Time, you're gonna think about this shit.
Oh my gosh.
And there's nothing you can do about it. You know what I'm saying? And that's a part of ourselves that I think I'm gonna fill this out and then we'll rate the song. But is the only way to control the subconscious would be to deal with your trauma proactively, consciously.
That's what I think.
That's the way I've felt. And I think in addition to that, not being afraid to examine it. Like, that's something that I have tried to do. I'm not always that good at it, but I've tried to do, is to not be afraid of examining the trauma. But there are other consequences to that, because if you're not afraid to explore very, what would you call it? Like sketchy things in your thoughts, it kind of leads to other things. So for example, when I discover, I don't know if I want to say this on stream, but like there are paths I've gone down discovering something, like for instance, the pit of despair, which is it's a concept. It was a device created by a clinical psychologist that was studying back in the 70s the effects of isolation on little monkeys. Super disturbing stuff.
I bet.
And like that is the kind of thing, like once I started reading up on it and kind of went down the rabbit hole, the problem is it haunted me. And it gets me thinking about that, just the trauma of it. Like reading up on it was a traumatic experience for me. And then I'm processing that trauma and I'm thinking about it. I'm like visualizing it from the perspective of these little monkeys. And it's like super disturbing. So there's sort of a double-edged sword to it, because if you're willing to explore very difficult psychological concepts like the trauma that you've experienced and such, it makes it hard to not analyze and explore really, really dark things that you discover. And there are just some things that I feel like sometimes I get exposure to where I feel it would be so much easier if I could just shut off and not even ever think about it, but I can't because I've gotten into this pattern of exploring the things that scare me and exploring the things that haunt me. And so sometimes I feel like it's more traumatic. Like if I would sometimes wish that I hadn't actually read up on the pit of despair and the work done by this particular psychologist.
Yeah, we've talked about that kind of before, like when that girl went missing, Gabby. Yeah. And I was like looking into it, and we had started kind of doing a little bit of reporting on that with Middle America. And I started feeling like this obsession, like I needed to know like what was going on, where, like, have they found her yet? Like I wanted them to find her so badly. I wanted there just to have been like some fight or whatever, and then she took off to her friends or something. But then Vin is always looking into stuff. Like there's always research happening. There's always new stories. And like, I see sometimes like all of a sudden you look like you're in like a slump, and I'm like, what piece of information did that? I think that sometimes it's just, you're just dealing with yourself normally, whatever. But then others, it's like, okay, that was inflicted by something that you learned. And so Vin had said to me, like, you have to know when to stop, and you have to basically take charge of your own mental health and say, okay, like I need to stop now. Even though like curiosity or that drive, I wouldn't even categorize the drive as curiosity. it was something else. Like I just like wanted her to be okay so badly. And I haven't even explored why or what was that all about. But when you said that, I was like, like inside, like, fuck you, Vin. Like, I want to research this. I need to know, but I was like, I do know that like I've seen you, and I know that you've done a lot more research and you've explored a lot more things, and you've gone on a lot. So I felt like I could take that advice from you because you've been there. So I stopped. And I was like, I kind of gauged it by like how I felt like I was on like the edge, like they have to find her. Like I was really kind of like a sort of bad feeling about it. And then so I said, okay, I'm not researching anymore. Like I'm just going to leave it with and just let the information, because you know how you hear like the information pops up. You're still going to find out if they find her or whatever. So I got like the bullet points of the rest of the story, and I let it go. But I think that that's important when you're looking into things, and like you said, kind of being open-minded about things, but then at the same time saying, okay, my mental health can't go down the spiral of this rabbit hole. I've got to stop.
Yeah. And that's something I would also mention to other people. Like, I think it comes down to if you over empathize, or if you empathize really strongly with people that you haven't even met and stuff, or with animals, definitely be careful about that kind of stuff. I think you kind of have to know your limit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So like what I mentioned before, if you go like Googling what I mentioned before, be very, very careful if you're somebody who overly empathizes, and just maybe avoid it entirely. You just kind of have to know your limits. And I think that's where sort of sometimes the problem comes. I think there's I run into the conflict of, I'm a very curious person and I like to learn, and I overly empathize, and I struggle with this problem, or not problem. I think it's kind of good, but I do the whole like analyze my own trauma and analyze the things that I'm afraid that scare me. Mm-hmm. And that combination can be a little bit of a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bet.
It's a gift and a curse.
What
do you give the song?
Ooh, this one's a 10 for me.
It's a solid, a sockle 10.
It's a 10. It was super
10.
relatable. The way that what they did with it musically made me feel uncomfortable, like my memories make me feel sometimes. So I'm like, well, this is done perfectly.
Perfectly. Yeah, solid 9.9. 9.9 for me. Really, really, really good song.
Easy 10 for me.
You too?
Easy 10 for Z. Yeah, these guys, I don't know if they're redefining Doom. If this was my introduction, I'll tell you this. If this was my introduction to Doom, I would then hate Doom. Because I would compare every other band to this band. And I'd be like, these people are horrible. Who are these people?
Yep. Man, these people don't know how to do Doom.
They don't know how to do Doom. Doom is doomed.
No, Alan, it was not boring for me.
All right, dear listener. We're coming up. Song number 4. The name of the song is Abandoned Throne. Is that it?
A Throne Abandoned.
A Throne Abandoned.
I need just a small break.
Okay. She shall return. She shall return. All right, we'll do a small break. We'll do a commercial break, and then we'll be right back.